Welcome Year 8 to the painting tutorial for this term. You need to collect your equipment and prepare your workspace, so check through this list here by stopping the video and making sure that you've set up your space. We don't want to get any paint onto kitchen tables or dining room tables, so set up properly please. Okay, in this particular part of the video you'll see me start to put the base coat down onto the background behind the figure. It's really important that you recognise that just one layer of paint is not going to be enough, so pay attention as we start to paint. You'll notice as I've been mixing the paint that the paint is actually filling up my brush. It's really important that I don't carry that across and try and start painting straight away. Unload your brush of the paint, and then all that excess paint that's also in your brush, just take some of it out. You can use your brush pretty much like you would use a pencil or a pen, but recognizing that you've got this added bonus of being able to flatten the brush out when you're going along a straight line. You can see here I've got a bit of black in my brush, which is causing me a bit of grief. Probably need to wash it a bit better. Now you'll notice that as I load up the brush again with paint, I make sure I've got the water off my brush so I don't dilute the actual colour pigment of the paint. And I'm just roughly filling in the big empty spaces, and then I'll come back and work back over the top. And I'm pulling my paint down the line and working from the corners back up the line, flattening the brush out, using the capabilities that the brush has in order to push the paint around. Looking at my colour photocopy, you might actually have yours on your screen on your device. I can see that this area is actually much lighter. So while the paint is still wet, I'm actually taking the white paint and blending it straight in over the top of the wet surface. Now that won't work if your paint is actually dry underneath. You'll need to mix up a lighter yellow, but because my paint is already wet underneath, I can add the white straight on top and it'll blend in with the layer of paint underneath. Now in this particular way I'm using the brush to come from behind, and I'm coming up to the very edge of the line from behind. So the whole point is to fill in the area of colour that you've been painting in, knowing that one layer is never going to be enough. Depending on what colour you've been using, you'll need to do 2, 3, possibly 4 coats. And I know with the red, you're going to probably do 4 coats in order to get it to cover. Be prepared to turn your canvas around to whatever direction it needs to be to make it most comfortable for you to paint. And there you have it, the first layer of yellow all blocked in. Now I can move on to my next colour. I'll let this one dry and come back and give it another coat later. Now what I'm doing here is I'm actually mixing up a darker yellow, almost an orange, to go in the tones of the darker parts of my hair. So I'm going to add a little bit of red to my yellow to darken down those areas. And I'm adding little bits at a time so that I don't overdo it. So a little bit of red, check it. A little bit more if need be, check it. You can put more in, but it's really hard to take it out. Now it's a process of just filling in different areas of colour as you desire. I'm going to start with my eyebrows here. I'll probably have to come back and touch them up, but just work through it step by step as you feel necessary. You'll notice that now that I've got the blue painted in, that it's quite transparent. That's a real clear indication that I need to do another 1 or 2, maybe 3 coats. And now I'm going to do the red, and you're going to see exactly the same thing happen with the red. You're going to be able to see quite a lot of the paint marks, the paint strokes from the brush, and that will mean that I'll need to come back and do probably 3, maybe 4 layers of red in order to make those brush strokes disappear. Now, is it a crime to actually see your brush strokes with art making? Of course not. But with this particular style being pop art, the whole idea is it to be flat, bold colour. So as much as I possibly can, I need to remove any evidence of the hand of the artist in my art making. Looking at this hand now, I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see it, but in my original image, the top of the hand is actually much lighter than the rest of the hand. So rather than using white, which I could do, I've chosen to use the yellow as my highlights. And so it'll go from yellow through into orange down into red. And it makes it really easy for me to transfer that transition from light down into dark by using the yellow. As I said, equally I could get away with doing it with white as well. So it's completely up to you with your choices of how you actually resolve this, but I'm making the light hit the top of my hand by using a mixture of yellow and the red to actually create that illusion of 3 dimensions. I am going to have to come back and do another coat, maybe 2, maybe 3. But this is just the first coat. Looking at the finished product with the first layer of paint on only, it's really obvious that there are little parts of the canvas showing through, and also the brush strokes are really quite evident as I pan across the canvas. So it's really clear I need to do a second coat, if not a third and a fourth. We don't want to see any bits of the canvas. Looking at this shot now, it's quite clear that the arm or the hand has had another coat of paint on it in comparison to the chest and the other hand. And already you can see that it's becoming far more convincing as a flat shape. I'll need to go and do another layer, but it's imperative, which means extremely important, that you actually do more than 1 coat. Well, I've been busy, I've filled in all these other areas, and now I've started on the face. The way that I've been able to mix up this skin tone, because a lot of students actually struggle with how to do that, it starts off with white, and to the white you add a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red, and you get this kind of peachy colour. Once I've done that, I sometimes need to add a little bit of blue to make it go a bit more purple than pink or orange. So it depends on what tonal range that you need, but essentially it's mainly white, a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red to give you this kind of skin tone. Now you're going to notice very quickly that I've got a very light skin tone, and then I need to bring over the top of it a darker skin tone. So in order to darken it, I'm using the primary colours of more yellow, more red and a little bit of blue. But you have to control it because it needs to be heading more towards a brown tone than a purple tone. And the way to do that is to balance your primary colours. So you might need to practice it on a piece of paper or in your book if you have it, to work out how to mix the colours correctly before you start to try and put them onto the canvas. Okay, so now I'm adding the final details to the face with a very fine tipped top of my brush. So when I'm putting the paint on my brush, it's just going on the very tip. Don't dip your brush heavily into the paint, and don't be worried about having to keep dipping it back into the paint. You just want the paint on the very tip so that you've got a very fine edge that you're actually applying the paint onto the surface of the canvas. And essentially you're drawing the outlines around the features of the face. Now I've got the basic colours on the lips. I'm just going to bring in a little bit of a magenta, pinky kind of red onto the lips and add a few highlights to it, and I'll do the same to the eyes as well. So I've been really busy and I've finished all the blocking in of all the shapes and all the colours. So the last thing for me to do now is to bring in the black and to go around all the outlines just like it would be in a cartoon or comic.